I thought at our age life would slow down.
Not with everything we need to coordinate.
My overtime, his basketball league,
My podiatrist and her PT.
his colonoscopy.
Her allergist.
We need to be in 2 places at once, which is no problem because the Iowa Clinic has over 40 specialties all in one place. So when our doctors want to coordinate our care, they just talk to each other.
Our doctors work together to figure out the best care for us, so we can go back to our busy lives of juggling our doctors, our careers.
Our grandchild.
Care how you want it. Visit iowaclinic.com.
Hello, Cyclone Nation. What's going on? Frigid Saturday here in central Iowa. No matter where you're watching, welcome to the pregame show with our friends from the Iowa Clinic and the Iowa Clinic Men's Center. It is nearing vasectomy season, baby. You're going to start to see commercials with me in a recliner with a bag of peas on my testicles. It's that time of year, baby. Welcome to the program. Jared Stansbury is kind enough to give us his time today.
What's going on, man?
Iowa State and Missouri are getting ready to tip off at 1 o'clock. Real quick note, this will mean nothing to anybody but you. And maybe if we have a few Southwest Iowa listeners, I got a call from the great, legendary Chuck Morris, who is in Columbia. He was hunting you and me down today.
It's bad news for the Cyclones right there.
Yeah,
that
Chuck
Chuck's
Morris
in
is in
town.
the house. He's a legendary KMA radio disc jockey, whatever you want to call it. Southwest Iowa politician, one of the greatest dudes you'll ever meet. He is a Missouri fan. There are a lot of old school clones who, this game really doesn't bring back anything to me. And I know I'm not as old school of a clone, but it's just, I loved your column yesterday. This doesn't feel like it's like paying homage to like some great, Norm Stewart, Johnny Orr of the past. This feels like just a stupid TV event for ESPN. And I used to like this event. I did. The first few years, I loved it. I thought it was cool how they played it in the middle of the year. But now, and you laid it out really well if you haven't read Jared's column. It's much like everything ESPN is doing in college basketball, specifically with the stupid ESPN Plus games. Like, there needs to be some sort of discretion, right? Like, these matchups could have been really cool today, but considering they set them in June, it made it impossible. There needs to be some, ability to move around a little bit. Regardless,
it makes no sense to me because they tell us all how there's no value in basketball. And in college basketball and in the media rights and all those things, there's no value in it. The last Saturday in January, the first couple Saturdays in February, all of those weeks of March, that's when college basketball matters, and that's why to me, it's like you're going to play this game, to have all these games on this day, the day before the NFL championship games. There's not a ton of stuff going on, around the rest of the sports world. College basketball can finally take center stage. Well, if we're going to make it a thing, make it a thing, and that's how you bring value to it. And it just
do like a draft 2 weeks before it.
Yeah. Or
like
something.
You got the Big 12 commissioner. Kansas, I want Kentucky, or, I have no idea, but the way it's set up is just, real quick, a score update. I'm assuming a lot of you are watching West Virginia and Auburn. West Virginia has a 1-point lead in that one going down to the
Auburn's
wire.
come back. Then they were up by, I think West Virginia was up 15 at halftime. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Regardless, we do have a basketball game today for Iowa State. They are taking on Missouri. A Missouri team that they don't have a bad loss on their resume. Here their losses are to Kansas, at Texas A&M, at Florida, at home against Alabama. So like they've lost to good teams. Having said that, they don't have a ton of great wins. I'll give them credit with Arkansas. They did beat Kentucky, but that was when Kentucky was completely total mess. They beat Illinois, which was a nice win, and really handled Illinois. So, while this game looked more daunting to me 2 weeks ago than it does now, I still think it's a pretty good challenge today for Iowa State, especially when you consider how banged up the Cyclones are.
I feel like we see a lot of teams like this one, and we'll probably see a lot more of them in this age of the transfer portal and things like that. This is just a team that's assembled of guys who could either get unbelievably hot and score 30 points, or guys who could get unbelievably cold and score 0, And I think that you look at their game the other night against Mississippi State, I think they were 16 of 30 from three. So they can knock down 16 3-pointers when they're feeling good, but then you go 3 of 28 against Alabama, and you have some games, I think they lost by, close to 30 to Kansas. Like they have some nights where they're going to be really cold and they're not able to knock down shots, and they don't defend well either, so it just is, it's kind of a collection of bucket getters, but they've got a bunch of guys who are veterans. If they get really hot, they can give you trouble on any night.
Yeah, no, really well said. I think that, this seems like a game too, where in all of these Big 12 games today, where officiating will greatly matter. Right.
It should be noted Caleb Grill's not playing too. Yeah.
He's not.
That came out half an hour ago or so. Yeah.
Okay, well that changes everything. I mean, I think Missouri will win. I'm not.
I think that's a fair conclusion to come to.
Yeah, I just do.
I think there is a path to winning for Iowa State, but I just think that when you don't have that offensive weapon, this is one of those times where you're glad to be playing a team that's barely in the top 200 in KenPom in defense.
Well, yeah, I mean, because this is clearly a game where Iowa State, if you're hot, like, you could score a lot of points. But again, like, I feel like officiating in all these games, when it's two Big 12 teams, Jared, like, it's a fight, exactly what it's going to be. Well, Missouri isn't exactly that.
Right.
I haven't seen them play a ton. Interesting. I'm looking at the line. The line really hasn't moved for Iowa State and Missouri with the Grill news.
I think Iowa State's still good enough to win the game. I think if they'd had Grill, I think if they'd had their whole team, if you have Jazz and you've got Grill, I think this is a game you could win by 10. Like, I think Iowa State's pretty clearly in that next stratosphere of teams, well above where Missouri is, at least just based on what we've seen so far this year. But obviously it'll be a tough environment too. I was curious to see what it'll look like when they've lost 4 of 7. Like, you have to think that some of the early buzz of going 12-1 is probably worn off at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, Chris says, to be honest, I don't have a good feeling about today's game. I hope I'm wrong. I know what they're doing. I mean, this is clearly you'd rather have Caleb healthy for Monday.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if they played Texas Tech on Wednesday, Caleb would probably play. Would be just my gut. I don't know anything on that. I haven't really talked to anyone. They've been so locked in. But it doesn't feel like this is a deal where Caleb's thing's going to keep getting worse. But
and
the more
that
time
game Monday's way bigger. It's way bigger.
Yeah, considerably bigger. And the good thing about today is it's quad 1, so if you lose, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to impact your metrics.
Right. Well, and that's what stinks, like, for a team like TCU. I guess I don't know if Mississippi State's quad 1 or not for sure, but it's like someone has to go play Ole Miss, who's like number 90 in KenPom. It's like, if you lose that game, that's a bad loss, compared to what you're going to get most of the time in the Big 12, at least.
This is actually a quad 1 for TCU, so good for them.
Remember when Iowa State went to Starkville a couple years ago?
I do. And then they lose by like 36 points.
Oh, I think it was more. I think they were down by 50 at one point.
They
gave up 100 points, I know for sure.
That was the beginning of the end of the Prom era had already begun, but that was when everybody was like, okay, this is done.
Yeah, that was the point when everybody knew it was just a waiting game at that point. Yeah. No coming back from it.
Trey King will be in the starting lineup tonight today for
Iowa. I'm excited for this opportunity. You get Trey King some more minutes. You get Demarion Watson maybe gets a little bit more run than he normally would without Caleb. I'm interested to see what those two guys can do to take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, this is where, last year's team would have really struggled in a situation like this, and this year's team actually has some warm bodies. Did Ott say, I was so out of it the last 2 days with other stuff, did he say when Kuntz is coming back? Do we know?
No, every time that he gets asked about it, he says it seems like it's about the same. Nobody's told him any different. So, yeah. But I mean, based on what they said to begin with, that game against Kansas was the one that they targeted. That's a week from today. So,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we got to be on the clock there.
It'll be good for them then if they're going to have, they play Monday and then you get 5 days or whatever, if he's going to be coming back into the fold. He still had a wrap or whatever on it the last time I saw, but.
Yeah, which I would guess he probably will play with something like that, considering it's his non-shooting hand where he broke that thumb.
I think that's right, yeah.
Yeah, broken, I think a thumb or something like that. All right, well, We are 5 minutes from tip-off. I will have reaction. We haven't really decided how we're going to do reaction. Jared might join me or not. We'll see. If Iowa State loses, we probably won't because you guys will just be pissed off at us anyways. But we have a quick turnaround today because the game on Monday. So Bloom and I are scheduled. Bloom and I are going to do the podcast tomorrow night right after we know who's playing in the Super Bowl because of the Brock Purdy storylines there. Now, if Brock loses, we may record early. We'll
How many more times do you think the 2019 Iowa State-Oklahoma game is going to be on FS1 before they kick off tomorrow?
Well, it's funny. I never watch FS1, and I saw it was on this morning, so I must have caught the last showing.
I've had someone tell me every day this week that the game's on.
Mother, that game was painful to rewatch again. That was like the 7th time I've watched that game, but it doesn't get any easier because it's just like every time you're like, well, how's Iowa State going to get to, tying this thing up? Like it
defensive virtuoso from John Haycock and the boys in the second half of that one to shut down Jalen Hurts.
Haycock, man.
He's a legend. Shout out to him.
He's a legend. All right. Have fun, everyone. And we'll be back after the game talking about it. Jared will have a call. And then we turn right back around and start to prepare for Texas Tech tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks to the Iowa Clinic for sponsoring.